Oh, you damn right. Recruiting never stops. That's why the recruiting hour hits you each and every week at this time. If you're watching live, welcome in. We do it at 10 a.m. on Wednesdays. If you're watching another time, welcome in as well. If you're one of those folks, we love all those views. Thank you for liking and subscribing and getting the notifications. It is the recruiting hour. I'm Chad Hastings. That is Jason Sukamel of orangebloods.com. And if you've been on orangebloods.com lately, you know he's working hard as always. He's got all kinds of content out there, and we'll be digging into a lot of that today. Before we get started, though, let's mention our great sponsor, and that is Longhorn Wealth Management Group. You see John's picture there at the bottom. Here's another picture of John and that QR code for you to jump in. We told you about John, a lifetime Texas Exes member. His wife, his 6 siblings are also UT grads. And that's why it's called Longhorn Wealth Management Group. They're dedicated to providing investment, retirement, insurance, and estate planning services and solutions to Longhorn families and friends across the nation. They've done it for over 30 years. John, like I know a lot of you, pumped about the basketball season coming to the tournament time. Obviously, the men trying to get in the tournament with the play-in game. The women are in with a 1 seed, and they're hosting at the Moody Center on Saturday. John's pumped, and to celebrate the basketball energy right now, he wants to offer all Orange Bloods Live fans free 90-minute private consultation so you can learn just about what they do and how working with a certified financial planner like John helps you maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and secure your legacy. You can call 972-707-4900 or go to longhornwealth.net to schedule that free 90-minute private consultation. And stick with us. We'll tell you about if you're looking for a place to come watch the crazy Thursday tournament action. We'll tell you where we're going to be. I think you can probably guess. But Jason, let's jump on in here. We got some cool names to go over. And if people love the receiver position, we're going to talk about some big names there. If you guys know the name Aaron Gregory, the A&M commit, we're going to finish up with an Aaron Gregory update. But by the rankings I'm looking at, Jason, we're starting with a guy that's ranked even higher than Aaron Gregory. Tristan Keys is his name, a wide receiver from Mississippi. Give us the update on Tristan. It feels like maybe the Longhorns have not always been a focus for him, but maybe that's changing.
Yeah, I think that's accurate, Chad. Sorry. Tristan Keys is out of Hattiesburg, Mississippi. He's a top 10 nationally ranked player, regardless of position by Rivals.com. He's, I think, the number 2 ranked receiver in the country. And listen, I got to see him in person last weekend at this overtime 7, OT 7, 7-on-7 tournament up in Dallas. And boy, he's every bit the part. I mean, whatever he's ranked, I'm like, okay, I get it. Like top 10 in the country. Yep. Makes sense. I mean, this dude, he looks the part. He played the part in these 7-on-7 games. Kind of a man among boys. Like he's just way more physically developed than pretty much every other recruit that was out there, every other prospect that was out there. And these are guys from all over the country, top national players playing in that tournament. So, Tristan, he's got an A&M visit scheduled. He's high on the school like LSU. I think he's going to visit LSU, but Texas is kind of hanging around there. I mean, Texas just offered him, let's say fairly recently, but he said, hey, Texas was a little late to the game. So they're trying to kind of close that gap. He mentioned LSU, Alabama, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Auburn, and Miami are the schools he mentioned about possibly getting official visits. Texas, he said, hey, I've been talking to Chris Jackson a lot lately, the Texas receivers coach. He said, we're trying to figure out a time to get me down there for an unofficial visit this spring. And then they're going to try to get him in for an official visit. Now, this is where things get a little tricky, Chad. Texas only historically does their official visits in June. There's 3 weekends in June to do official visits. Mm-hmm. Okay, the last weekend's a dead period. Other schools do them in April. They do them in May. They do them in June. You can do them those 3 months. Texas says, nope, we're going to cram everything in June. Well, Tristan Keys has his June calendar filled up. So we'll see. Does Texas bend their rules for Tristan Keys and say, okay, we'll bring you in late May? Do they try to talk Tristan Keys into saying, hey, why don't you bump one of those other schools to May and you come in June? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is going to be there. But I can tell you this. He does like Texas. He wants to get to Texas for multiple visits. He told me he loves the development of receivers at Texas. The word he used, Chad, he said, hey, the last couple of years especially, he said Texas is kind of one of the wide receiver U schools in college football. So there's a strong interest there, but I think Texas is playing from behind. They're trying to catch up. But I've been hearing for a couple months now, hey, Texas really likes Tristan Keys. The people in Austin think they have a shot at Tristan Keys. And I think we backed that up when I talked to Tristan this weekend. It's just a matter of kind of figuring out the specifics and how this visit is going to work out.
Yeah, if we're talking number 2 receiver in America, maybe you bend a rule or two if you have some of those.
Yeah.
But Jason, tell me, in the Sark era, have they done that at all? Have you seen them allow a guy maybe come in April or May if that works best for him, or do they really focus in on June?
They really focus in on June. And of course, Texas getting such a late start with their spring season, they don't finish spring football until April 26th. So they're not going to want to bring in a guy. I mean, you could, I guess, but ideally you don't want to bring in a guy for an official visit during your spring football season because you're busy coaching and doing, meetings and everything else. So, but the month of May would seem to be pretty open in the possibility. But no, to answer your question, Chad, they have not. In fact, Booby Feaster is another guy. He's got his June official visit set up. He kind of thought about, hey, maybe I'll take my Texas official visit in May. And Texas kind of said, we kind of only do June official visits. So he's now visiting, I think it's Miami instead of Texas that last weekend of May. So, so far, Texas has stuck to its guns. Listen, could they win out with Tristan Keys by getting him in for an unofficial visit in April and May and not an official visit? Yeah, it's possible. I mean, stranger things have happened, but you'd certainly like Texas's chances better if they're able to find a way to get him in for that official visit. And then 48 hours, you get to put him up in the Four Seasons and wine him and dine him at Vince Young Steakhouse and Top Golf and all the fun things they do. So an official visit, I like Texas's chances much more if they can find a way to get him in for an official visit.
So you mentioned, kind of the timing of things where, he mentions, Texas may be in a little late, I guess, compared to others. Do we have a sense for who the absolute favorites are? I saw in your notes some of his comments about Knoxville and about LSU as well. A kid from Mississippi. Is it kind of those schools? Maybe throw in Bama in terms of like where you would start the focus of what Texas is up against?
It's funny. Like I went into last weekend thinking, okay, it's going to be some out-of-state schools, but maybe Ole Miss and even Mississippi State people had been talking about. But he didn't mention either of those in-state schools to me. So I think it is out-of-state. I mean, LSU, I think he is visiting LSU this week, if I'm not mistaken. Chad, I think you're Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M is a really strong shot there. I mean, in Tennessee, I think Tennessee and Alabama. I think, I think he has an SEC feel. So I think he wants to stay kind of in that region, in that zone. Some power players there. I mentioned Miami as a school, Auburn, but I really think LSU, I think Texas A&M, I think Alabama and Tennessee right now are kind of the schools. If I had to pick, I'd maybe pick one of those. But, Tristan's a guy that I think he's pretty open to going into this spring and this summer tour of visits. I don't think even he really knows where he's going to wind up, but I do think it's going to be one of those 3 or 4 schools in the SEC.
So I know, Jason, sometimes we'll talk about Sark loving the maybe shorter receiver that's an absolute burner. All 3 receivers we're going to talk about today are actually listed at 6 foot or taller. And Tristan Keys, 6'2" is what I'm seeing here. So this is a little bit more of a big bodied type receiver.
He is. And, Sark has mentioned, I think Anwar reported that, like, he does love the small, quick Jalen Waddle types, right? Of course, who doesn't, right? Devontae Smiths. But in the SEC, he said, hey, you got to have guys who can run, but you got to have size as well. And we're starting to see these, 6'4" safeties and 6'2" cornerbacks and things. So you got to have big receivers who can make contested catches. And Tristan Keys fits that bill. I mean, he's a pretty good route runner. What I saw this weekend, he just has a good sense for finding holes in the defense and setting in when he needs to, settling in. But he's a big guy who can run, he can stretch the field, he can make contested catches. Really is a total package. I mean, just a tremendous prospect.
So Tristan Keys, the first name that we're hitting today. If you guys want to throw in a chat or super chat, go ahead. I am not seeing any chats coming in yet. So if they are there, Jason, are you seeing chats at all?
I'm not. That makes me wonder if our chat. Sometimes that chat thing is a little finicky for us. So.
Money B or Chris Bennett or
somebody in there, yeah.
Barb's 10, one of our, just send us a tester just to make sure it's there. If you guys don't want to jump in the chat, there we go. Okay. All right. Thank you, Jareth. I appreciate you. There it is. Okay. So we're good. If you guys want to shoot us a super chat, it'll go right to the top of the list. While we're thinking about it, let's also let's give Specs their love, because of course it is the Specs chat. It's a busy time of year sports wise with all the basketball going on. You might need to get stocked up, and Specs can help you do it. Here's Lisa.
At Specs, it doesn't cost a lot to turn a good time into a great time, especially if you like saving money. From connoisseur collectors to aficionados of ale, you'll find bubbly bliss at any budget with a Texas-sized selection of world-class wines, rare spirits, craft beers, and more. So when you're getting ready for a good time, Specs is ready to make it great. Because at Specs, the fun starts here.
Shout Specs, low priced, amazing. Here's to you, shout. Cheers to saving.
All right, so as we're talking some recruiting today, if you guys are the type that like to look at those June visit weekends that Jason talks about, maybe circle them and write them down. As of right now, Tristan Keys, we don't have anything official for Texas on one of those weekends. Obviously, Jason's going to keep his eyes peeled for that. He'll let you know when that happens. And I will also remind you with a QR code here, orangebloods.com, always the place for info. And there's a lot of extra recruiting information out there, even more articles, even more stuff out there for you at orangebloods.com. So be sure to check that out. So, Jason, we'll go from a guy who's not set to visit Texas yet. Obviously, Texas hopes that he will, to a guy we've talked about a little bit this week, but that I believe is set to visit Texas. Let's talk about Chase Calicut, a great name, and speaking of big bodies and taller guys, a 6'4" safety listed at the number 4 safety in America as I see him here. And there's a connection to a big time Texas high school here. What's the update on Calicut?
Yeah, like I said, you got to have big players to cover guys like Tristan Keys, right? So Chase Calicut fits that bill. You know, he was at the OT7 deal I was at, and there was a play, Chad, where you don't blitz much in 7-on-7, right? I mean, you think 7-on-7 is just throwing the football around all over the field. But every once in a while, you'll see a quarterback run. You'll see a guy blitz from the secondary just to try to disrupt the quarterback and get him out of rhythm. And Calicut comes in at 6'4" in blitzes and jumps up, and the quarterback throws the ball. And, dude, I mean, he's like 5 yards from the quarterback, and he just picks it out of the air and takes off and goes the other direction for a pick six. I mean, usually you think of a play like that, it's a batted ball but no, he snags the ball out of the air, takes off and goes the other direction. So 6'4", good eye-hand coordination, good athleticism, good everything. He's at a North Shore High School, you mentioned. He's out of a power program in the Houston area. Texas new cornerbacks coach, Mark Orfe, went to North Shore. So Coach O, as they call him, has been talking to Chase Calicut pretty much every day, texting him, DMing him, calling him. You know, Coach O coaches cornerbacks, but it's smart. He's got that North Shore connection, so they're putting him on Chase Calicut. And Chase does have his official visit set for Texas for June 13th. He's trying to find a time, or a date rather, for this spring to get up there for an unofficial visit. He mentioned spring game. He goes, but Texas isn't having a spring game, so that's probably not going to work. He still might come up on April 26th, but he's still trying to figure out a date. So, you know, in talking to Chase Calicut, I like talking to Chase. First off, every time I've seen him, he's very open. He just doesn't play the games. He's like, nope, this is my list. Here's where the teams stand. Here's what I like. And he's like, Texas is probably, he's like, yeah, they're probably my top school. He goes, definitely top 3, if not number 1. So it's interesting because he's got an official visit to Michigan set up. He's got Washington. He's got Texas. He's kind of finalizing some others. The vibe I get, Chad, and I put this in the rumor mill story that I just posted on Orange Bloods this morning. Shameless plug. Go check it out. It's the first one we've done. I think you people will enjoy it. It's kind of a mini condensed war room of all just little nuggets we're hearing on different recruits. But I think it's Texas, okay, at the top. I think it's Washington right behind Texas. He did visit Washington this spring. He really liked what he saw there. I think Washington is right below Texas. And then I think there's another tier below them, and it's probably Alabama and Ole Miss. Okay, you got Michigan hanging around somewhere in this mix. SMU, he visited. He likes SMU. But I do think it's Texas and Washington right now. Now, does a guy from North Shore who has a connection with a Texas coach who went to North Shore, a guy in Chase Calicut who's really close to his family, does he go all the way to Washington? I don't know. It would seem unlikely to me. So I like Texas's chances with this one. But I'm just telling you, and speaking to him and speaking to others, he did really, really like that Washington visit. They are definitely a legitimate player in this one.
Yeah, and back to your comment about Orfe, I think that's another reason why that Orfe idea makes so much sense. If Washington's really that other school, and then the others that I'm seeing here, Michigan, Ole Miss, Bama, that type of list, then Jason, the local angle. I still go back to your note and the kids saying, hey, coach knows about the East Side, referencing North Shore. So Mark Orfe can talk to him about, the restaurants that North Shore people know about, right? The hangouts, the just making a reference that makes him have that nostalgia. And anybody that knows it comes from the Houston area to the Austin area, that's not exactly a 20-minute trip.
Yeah.
I don't know it personally, but I'm guessing if I'm in school at Austin and my family is in the North Shore area, I don't feel like they're, smothering me, Jason. That's a 2.5 hour journey in good traffic. So,
it's funny you say that, Chad. I grew up in lovely Bay City, Texas.
Okay.
And I went to the University of Texas. There you go. And it was about a 2.5 hour drive. And I always said it was far enough away from home that I had my independence, but it was close enough. If I wanted to go home and do some laundry or have a home cooked meal for mom, I could do it right on a quick weekend trip. So it is kind of that, for me anyways, in my experience, that kind of perfect sweet spot. You don't have to get on a plane. You don't have to drive 6 hours, but also mom and dad can't just show up at your door ununannounced, right? So it's a perfect distance away. Yeah,
yeah, that's what you want to do.
No offense, mom and dad, if you're watching this show by chance.
Right. No, they knew. Jason, I can still hear my mother telling me about when my brother and I were both officially out of the house, and I was thinking there was going to be this emotional story. She said, no, we kind of enjoyed it. Yeah, we kind of liked that time. Like it gave us a chance to kind of chill out.
My parents live 2 miles away from me. I still don't like when they show up unannounced. I'm 50 years old, so give me a heads up. So certainly when I was in college, I'm like, give me a chance to stash some stuff in my dorm room so that I don't want you guys seeing, right? So
exactly. And as I referenced earlier, Jason, Calicut is scheduled to come in on that June. Is it the 13th? He's coming in
13th. That's shaping up to be a monstrous weekend. So by the way, Chad, do you want to help me stalk the airport on June 13th? Because they're going to be like 30 guys coming in that weekend. My head is going to be spinning that weekend. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's going to be a busy one. Yeah. So the 6th, the 13th, and the 20th, all going to be something that we're keeping our eyes on. And the 13th, Calicut will be a part of that. All right, Jason, we'll grab a couple more names outside of the receiver world, and then we'll turn back to the receivers. In fact, let's duck out a second of the 26 group and hit a 27 guy, if I'm not mistaken, in Zane Rowe, badass defensive end out of Denton Guyer. So again, this is the next class, the 27 group. What do we know about Rowe today?
Zane is interesting, and he's another guy that's just very open with his recruitment, which I appreciate, right? And the viewers probably do too. But as a reporter, I really appreciate it. But Zane Rowe's out of Denton Guyer. You mentioned he's 27. He's a defensive end / tight end. So at this, he can play tight end, but I think his long-term future is that defensive end. I think he knows that, and I think he is okay with that. But he's a one-time Oklahoma commitment. He committed to OU super early. He decommitted from Oklahoma, so he's back on the market. He did recently visit Oklahoma, and he visited Georgia. This is all like last week, I believe. Visited both those schools. He has spring visits. Let me check my notes because he's got a lot of them. Baylor, TCU, SMU, Texas A&M, and he's going to Nebraska for their spring game on April 26th. So, I said, hey, what are the odds you get back down to Austin? Because he did come to Austin for their junior day in late January. He said, yeah, I'm trying to get to UT also, but I'm just kind of looking at trying to figure out my schedule. I mean, you can only take so so many trips, obviously. So, but the interesting thing, Chad, with Zane, and again, he's 2027, so we've got a long ways to go with him. And he's like, hey, I'm not going to do another early commitment. It's going to be, maybe next summer. So we got a full year plus, because he goes, I'm not going to decommit again. But recently he told the Rivals Oklahoma site that Texas was hit in his top 2. Okay. And I read that, and I hadn't talked to Zane since then. So I saw him and I said, hey, Zane, I said, you recently said that Texas was in your top 2. Who's the other one? And he kind of smiled. He goes, man, I'm kind of backing off that a little bit. He goes, I'm not really putting labels or numbers on anybody. So because there's so many programs, and he just visited Oklahoma and Georgia, and he's got all these upcoming visits. So I can't technically say Texas is in his top 2 because he kind of backed off of that. But clearly the Longhorns are in a really good spot there. He loves the coaching staff at Texas. He loves the development at Texas. He keeps telling me he loves the speed training they do at Texas. He goes, look at what Xavier Worthy did, and Matthew Golden, and all these guys are running just crazy 40 times. He goes, you can't be a big guy and be slow, right? You got to be able to move. So he goes, I love that Texas is developing speed. But it's early. Oklahoma, he decommitted there. They're still in the mix. A&M's heavily in the mix. He's not afraid to go out of state. I think Georgia's a legit threat there, but he does like Texas a lot. I think Texas is in that kind of top grouping for Zane Rowe as he kind of slowly works through this process.
It's interesting. A D end noticing the speed training. You heard it here first. Rowe's going to go sub 4.25. Well, maybe not that fast. That's cool though that he's noticing something like that and realizing that it's a combination of obviously the young man himself, but also the program. That's interesting that both are kind of getting credit. And again, this is a Denton Geyer guy. I'm seeing him as the number 5 D end. In that 27 class. You mentioned Jason being in the 27 class. There's time here. Back to that Texas comment to an Oklahoma site. Do you think he was just trying to freak the Oklahoma people out? Is that what it was?
I don't think so. I think Zane he's just very open. This dude, I think he told me one time, Chad, that he's going to go, he'd like to go into the media. And I was like, man, he should. This guy is a fantastic interview. And you ask him a question, and a lot of guys give you I get it. They're young. They're not used to having a microphone stuck in their face, but they'll give you a 3-word answer. No, Zane Rowe gives you a well thought out, 45-second answer. So he's just pretty open with his recruitment. But he's also young, right? Things change from week to week, day to day. So I don't think he's the type that plays a lot of games. And there's maybe a little gamesmanship with Zane, but not a lot. I think at the time he had visited Texas fairly recently before that comment. I think Texas was a team that was kind of fresh in his mind. Now he just visited Oklahoma. He just visited Georgia. He's got all these other visits coming up. So I think he just kind of said, I'm going to step back from that a little bit and just kind of be a little bit more open-minded.
And again, just to clarify, I think you just kind of answered this, but Rowe is a guy that has visited Texas before.
Oh, yeah, a bunch. Yeah, a bunch. He was there for the junior day in late January. But I remember interviewing him after a junior day, I think he was a freshman. In fact, I joked with Zane. I was like, Zane, I feel like I've been talking to you for 5 years, dude. So since you were in 8th grade or something. So yeah, he's visited Texas a bunch.
Nice. All right, so we're halfway through our list of 6. We're gonna.
I got to put this chat up from Rex St. Charles, who's thanks Rex for being a loyal viewer. What does stalking the kids at the airport actually do for anyone? Well, Rex, it's kind of a new thing that's come up the last couple of years. When these guys come in for official visits, they fly in. Not a guy from Bastrop necessarily, or even Houston or Dallas, but the out of state guys fly in. So when they're leaving on Sunday for their official visits, that's the best way to get interviews and pictures and talk to them is to catch them at the airport. Usually I'm down at the airport and I'm still working the phones and I'm keeping an eye on, okay, here comes Tristan Keys coming through. I'm going to go get an interview. But, nowadays, it used to be back in the day, man, you would just call these guys. They'd pick up the phone, they answer. But they get bombarded so much now, it's almost easier to catch them in person at the airport. So that's kind of what me and several other reporters do on Sunday afternoons during official visit season. My Sundays are sitting down there stalking the airport, which feels very paparazzi-ish. I don't love it, to be honest with you, but you do what you got to do to get the interview, to get the job done, right?
Yeah. Plus, Rex, A, it makes them feel important. That's cool. And B, it helps kill time at the airport. I mean, there's tons of that to get rid of too.
Well, I've interviewed guys, Chad, they're coming through and like their flight leaves in like 20 minutes. And like, hey, listen, I will interview as you go through security. Let's do that. So like, I don't want to make you miss your flights. So yeah.
Jason's going through the security scan with the guys and everything.
Here, put my hands up. Like, yeah.
Jason's getting pat. Can you just go ahead, pat me down while I'm talking to him? Can we just get this done?
Can I keep my my recorder as I go through the metal detector?
That's right. Don't mess with the recorder hand, man. Don't do that. All right, we got 3 more names that we are going to hit here. Before we do it, let me just remind you, if you're looking for a place to come check out the tournament, and specifically first day of the tournament, how about a little watch party out at TCH Social Austin? We're heading back out there. If you checked us out for the football watch parties, come on out for the first day of the tournament. It is kind of a national holiday after all. So get your excuses together and, schedule like that sales meeting in the afternoon. TCH Social Austin. See the first game starting about 11:15, and Ketch and I are going to do house divided from TCH Social when those first couple games are just getting going. And then when we're done with the show, we're just going to be hanging out. So come on out and see us at TCH Social Austin for the first day of the tournament. And again, if you want to throw a chat in here, we will get to those. 3 more names to hit, Jason. We will get a Stewart on both sides of the ball. Let's start with defense. Blake Stewart. This is back to the 26 class for everybody. And a young man out of Georgia. Blake Stewart, a talented cornerback out of the state of Georgia. What's the update on him?
Yeah, Blake has set up 3 official visits. He has not set one up yet for Texas. He said he's working on that to set up the Texas visit. But he's been to Texas on 3 unofficial visits. He's got SMU, he's got Clemson, he's got Miami. Now, the good news for Texas, only Miami is in June. Those other ones are in May, right? So he's got a couple weekends open in June. So maybe Texas can finalize a date there. But excuse me, he's been to Texas a few times already, Chad, on unofficial visits. He's been in anytime I interview a defensive back now, it's a little bit interesting because I'm like, okay, have you talked to the new defensive back coaches? Because now they have a nickels coach, they have a corner coach, they have the safety coach, Dwayne Aquina. So it's an entirely new defensive back coaching staff. But Blake Stewart said, yeah, he's been in touch with the Texas DB coaches. So that tells me, okay, these new coaches like him. So are they going to push and bring him in for an official visit? We'll see. He wants to set something up, but nothing is set up so far. And interesting, I need to mention, he's also good friends and plays on the same 7-on-7 team with Samari Matthews, who is a Rivals 100 top 50 national player out of North Carolina that Texas recently offered. Samari Matthews is coming in for an official visit. So could Texas try to package them together and say, hey, your buddy Samari's coming here. He likes Texas. Why don't you come? Maybe, kill 2 birds with 1 stone, if you will. But, Blake's pretty open. He likes Texas a lot. Like I said, didn't give me a lot of, like, hey, here's my kind of pecking order, but just said, Texas, he wants to set up that official visit. He said, hey, I'm kind of trying to settle on some top schools, a top group of, 3 or 5 schools. And he said Texas will be in that group. So this one's kind of, there's still some moving parts. How hard is Coach Orfe going to push for Blake Stewart? Is he going to be a top priority? Are they going to bring him in for an official visit? Are they going to try to maybe get him in April for a spring practice? Things are still kind of up in the air. But listen, the guy's visited Texas on his own dime 3 times, right? So that tells me he likes Texas quite a bit. The key to me will be if he sets up an official visit. He said he wants to, but it's not set up yet. But, an official visit is always – I remember talking to a college coach, Chad, like 20 years ago or something like that. And I said, hey, what's your confidence level on this guy? And this guy was listing Texas, and I don't even remember, let's say Oklahoma. But the guy didn't take a Texas official visit. And this coach who had been coaching a long time at this point said, hey, I've never won a recruitment for a kid who didn't take an official visit. So let's see, does Blake Stewart set up a Texas official visit or not? That'll be really telling. Right now he doesn't have it set up, but he said he's trying to work out a date, get with the Texas coaches and kind of get that set up. So, we'll have a better handle on that maybe the next couple of weeks. see if something gets set up.
Interesting. Out-of-state kid, already been in 3 times on his own dime. That's certainly telling, as you said. Excuse me, real quick, back to the teammate you mentioned, Samari Matthews. Also a defensive back or a different position?
Also a cornerback. Yeah,
also a corner. Okay.
In 7-on-7 teammate, not high school teammate.
A 7-on-7 teammate, but they're both cornerbacks.
Both cornerbacks, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, Jason, let's round it out.
Players like what do we? Let me see. Blake Stewart, we got Blake at 6'1", 170, and we got Samari at 6'1", 185. Just in seeing them both, Blake to me is a little more compact. I would maybe put him around 6 foot, and Samari is a little more long and lean.
Okay.
Yeah, but both really good players. I mean, Samari is a top 50 player. Blake's just outside the Rivals 100.
All right, talking some cornerbacks a little over 6 feet. Now we'll get back to some receivers that are 6 feet or more, and we'll round it out. To be fair, we'll round out with a Texas commitment, an Aggie commitment, and the update on each of them. So you guys probably know these names. Let's talk about the Texas commit first, Jason. It's Chris Stewart, the wide receiver out of, let me see if I do this right. He's Shadow Creek?
Yeah, Pearland, Shadow Creek.
Did I get that right? I know the okay, there we go. I got family in that area, and when that high school popped up, I had to learn about it. So one of those Shadow Creek guys, and he's been committed to Texas for a while, correct?
Yeah, he has a really good program down at Shadow Creek, and he committed last June. So it's last summer. We're not quite a year out, but so he's been committed to Texas for a long time. You know, I've talked to Chris a bunch. We've probably talked about him on the recruiting hour, Chad. I can't remember from week to week who we talked about and who we didn't.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we talked about Chris before.
Have, yeah.
But, you know, he's been very open ever since he committed, saying, hey, I'm going to take other visits. I'm going to do my due diligence, if you will. I'm going to compare apples to apples. And he does have 5 official visits set up, and I don't have them. They're not on his profile. I need to put those on there. But he's got 5 official visits set up, including one to Texas, of course. He's going to Arizona State. Here, I just pulled up. In May, he's going to SMU. And then June, he's got Arizona State. He's got Texas. He's got Tennessee. And then he's got Miami also in late May. So, and also he wants to visit Oklahoma, but he's still trying to work out a date for that. So he's been very open all along about taking other visits. Now he's got these other visits set up. But I tell you what, man, Chris Stewart is a guy that people aren't talking about a ton because his ranking has dropped. And Chris mentioned that when I talked to him this week. He's like, yeah, my ranking keeps dropping. He's down to 190 nationally. So he's still in that Rivals 250, okay? Mm-hmm. But he wasn't just talking about Rivals. He said every network has dropped him in the rankings. Dude, he was really good at this OT7 tournament. Sam Spiegelman, the Rivals analyst that was there, had him as the number 2 overall player. Not saying he's the number 2 ranked player, but in terms of performance at that tournament, he was number 2 on Spieg's list. I think I saw another list from like On3 maybe or something where they had him like top 2 or 3 in this tournament. I mean, he was a really good player. So, you know, I think he should get a bump in the rankings, which is kind of what he goes, I'm out here to prove some people wrong. So I think he did just that. So, but you know, he's very open. I've talked to him a bunch. I talked to him again last weekend. He just said, hey man, you know, things can change. I committed so early and signing day is a long ways away. I mean, what happens if Chris Jackson goes to the NFL or takes another job, or if something happens with Sark or whatever, anything could happen. So he's keeping an open mind. He is committed to Texas, really likes Texas a lot, obviously, committed early, but he understands, hey, things can change. So I'm going to have some kind of backup options. The other side of this, Chad, is he's got a brother who's in the 2026 class. They're not twins, but they're brothers, but they're in the same class. But he and his brother want to play together. Now, Arizona State and SMU are the 2 schools that are probably offering the best opportunity there in terms of full scholarships. If his brother comes to a place like Texas, he'll probably have to be a preferred walk-on to start off. So, again, I use the word moving parts. There are some moving parts in this one, but Chris is still committed to Texas. He's still in full contact, communicating with Texas. But, you know, he's just keeping an open mind. He's exploring his options for sure.
Gotcha. In terms of him having a Texas visit nailed down, is it also going to be that June 13, or which one is he?
June 13th. Yep. So they're
Okay.
bringing him in for the, and I don't love this, but a lot of Texas fans are like, oh, Texas is, kind of slow playing him. I'm like, no, you don't bring him in on the June 13th, your big weekend, if you're slow playing. I mean, obviously Texas likes him a lot. So yeah, he's got SMU May 2nd, Miami May 30th, Arizona State June 6th, Texas June 13th, Tennessee June 20th. So they're bringing him in on their biggest weekend. That alone tells me, hey, he's a priority for Texas because, I get it. He's not as highly ranked as Tristan Keys. So people are like, oh, no, Texas is looking for other options. I don't think that's the case. I mean, I think fans are misreading this a little bit. Texas wants to hang on to Chris Stewart.
By the way, Lewis, I see your chat regarding a running back question. We will get to that. But let's get one more name out there, Jason, and it is Aaron Gregory. It's definitely a name we've talked about on the recruiting hour before. I see him listed here as a number 6 wide receiver in the country. He is an A&M commitment as we are talking here today on a Wednesday. What's the update, though, on Aaron Gregory? I know there's a lot of Texas fans that would love to see a flip at some point.
Yeah, early commitment for A&M out of Georgia, elite player, Rivals 100 player. He's solidly committed to A&M, I would say. I wouldn't. He's kind of in between a soft commitment and a solid, if that's what's the word. I don't know how he categorizes that because he is taking
the old soft solid. Okay, the soft solid.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like halfway melted butter. I don't know. It's like, but he is going to take a Texas official visit, right? On June 13th. He is going to visit LSU. So he's exploring other options. But in talking to Aaron, he really likes that A&M commitment. He said, hey, man, he goes, I'm big on loyalty, is what he told me. He goes, so getting me to peel off that A&M commitment is going to be tough. He goes, that A&M staff's been really good to me. I really like them. They recruited me, even Coach Elko, when he was before he got to A&M, when he was at Duke, they were recruiting him. So he's got kind of long-standing relationships there. And he just kept saying, he goes, I'm really big on loyalty. I don't like breaking my word. He's given them a commitment. So, but the fact that Texas and LSU are getting visits, he's obviously keeping an open mind to some degree. So he said, same thing as Tristan Keys. He said, hey, I love the development at Texas with Chris Jackson. At LSU, he just said, hey, I have a really good connection with the coaching staff there. So, I think Texas has a shot. Anytime you get a guy on campus, especially at a place like Texas, you have a legitimate shot. But he is pretty happy with his A&M commitment. He's going to visit A&M the weekend before he visits Texas, which might be good for Texas. You get him after that A&M visit. So then I'm assuming LSU would maybe be June 20th. So Texas and LSU will have a chance to kind of chip away after he takes that A&M official visit. In a perfect world, if you're Texas, you'd love to have him get on campus for an unofficial visit this spring. I don't know that that's in the works, or it's not in the works right now. I mean, it could still happen. But Texas will get him in for an official visit, and they'll have their chance to kind of swing for the fences with an elite playmaker at the receiver position. But he is pretty happy in talking to him with that A&M commitment. It's not going to be easy to flip him.
Yeah, that would be big if Chris Stewart and Aaron Gregory end up coming in on the 13th of June for Texas. Obviously, I guess if on the Mike Elko side, he probably hopes Aaron Gregory doesn't make that visit on the 13th. But like you said, we'll see what the 6th weekend looks like there. And then the 13th gets even bigger.
And that'll be the objective, right, for A&M. He visits them on the 6th. It'll be like, Aaron, you've been committed to us since October. Right. Like, dude, we've been loyal to you. Be loyal to us. Don't take those other visits. They'll try to talk him out of those visits. And, and then Texas will try to talk him in. And he'll probably change his mind 20 times between June 6th and June 13th. So we'll just have to see Rex. We'll have to see if he shows up at the airport on June 13th. So.
That's it. That's why you go stalk him at the airport, Rex. That's why it's done. Aaron Gregory, again, out of the state of Georgia, currently an A&M commit. But there's an update on a lot of big names for you. Speaking of an update on big names, Jason Lewis had a quick question for you. Have you heard the announcement date for KJ Edwards, Carthage running back?
Yeah, KJ is going to take his official visits, including a Texas visit on June 6th. He's coming in that first weekend. He's got an announcement date for August 2nd. So most guys always just say, I want to be committed before my senior season. Maybe July, or they'll just say before my senior season. But KJ, and I don't know exactly why August 2nd. I think I've asked him that, And he's just like, it's kind of a date that sticks out. I don't remember if it was somebody's, usually it's like, oh, that's my mom's birthday, or that's some specific day, but I don't remember why exactly August 2nd, but that is the scheduled announcement for KJ Edwards, August 2nd. I think it's Texas or Texas A&M. I still do. I know he's got some other schools kind of hanging around there, but I think it's going to come down to Texas and Texas A&M. I still like Texas's position in that one as things stand right now.
That is going to be wild with those running backs, man, depending on where Osborne ends up and then Edwards and what that could mean for certain schools. Maybe August 2nd is right before his high school team goes into fall.
Could be
football?
before they go into, I say old
right.
school, 2-a-days. Yeah. People don't do 2-a-days anymore, but yeah, before they start their summer camp or fall camp. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, it's called fall camp now. You can't call it 2-a-days. They may do 2-a-days, but those were the days, right? Lewis, thank you for
August 2nd is on a Saturday, so like you said, Chad, maybe they start on like that Monday or something. I don't know. I'll next time I talk to KJ, I'll ask him, hey, why that specific day? But August 2nd is the date.
Maybe just to get it out of the way. All right, we covered a lot of ground today. 6 big names. 3 of them were wide receivers. We started with Tristan Keys. We ended with Aaron Gregory. Jason, anything else you wanted to throw out in this edition of the Recruiting Hour?
Yeah, I've had a couple updates on Diabell. I had him in my 3-2-1 column yesterday. In my rumor mill today, I got an interesting quote from Diabell. He basically said, hey, Texas fans kind of get anxious when a school like Georgia offers you, or Alabama or whatever. He's like, no, don't worry about it. Like, just go check out the rumor mill today. I think fans will enjoy. I think they'll enjoy the whole column. Actually, it's quite a bit of recruiting intel there. Peyton Houston is a quarterback out of 2027. So I've got a note about him in there. A good note, Texas fans will really love Jaraylen McCoy out of Tupelo, Mississippi. It's interesting. So he released the top 5 on Sunday, I believe it was, Chad. And how that works, he released it through Hayes Foster, who does all these edits, right? So he probably sent Hayes, hey, here's my 5 schools, like on Friday, put it out Sunday night at 7. Well, in between the time he sent that information to Hayes and Hayes issued the tweet out, he changed his top 5. He dropped A&M out and moved Texas A&M in, or moved Texas in. So Hayes puts the tweet out and it's got Texas A&M in there. And Jaraylen tells me, no, that's not right. I'm visiting Texas, not Texas A&M. He goes, in fact, tweet it for me and I'll retweet it. He goes, I want to get that out there. So,
wow.
So the edit in those 48-hour span, the edit ended up being outdated, and that's no fault of Hayes Fawcett, who does amazing work. That's just how things are in recruiting. Things change in a hurry. So Jaraylen McCoy out of Tupelo, Mississippi, now has a Texas official visit. He's coming in for an unofficial visit this spring, and then he'll have a Texas official visit. Texas moves in, Texas A&M moves out. I think LSU and Florida are the 2 teams to beat there. But again, he hasn't seen Texas yet. So when he sees Texas, I think Texas will climb into that top tier, and then we'll see if what happens from there.
Interesting. One other question from me, Jason, before we wrap up. All these guys we talked about today, if I'm seeing the rankings correctly, are listed as 4-star talents. As you look at this 6, are there a couple that you would say by the end of the cycle could end up with a 5th star, or are we talking about good quality 4 stars with all of them?
Well, Tristan Keys is a 5-star. He's the one that's already a 5-star. I mean, he's number 10 in the country.
I'm sorry, you're right. The others were 4 stars. You're right. He was
Calicut has a chance, but he'd have to have a really good senior season. I think Aaron Gregory has a chance. I mean, he's number 43 nationally. The receiver who's committed to A&M. Rule of thumb, if you get in that top 32, you're probably going to be a 5-star. So he's number 43 right now. I tell you, we didn't talk about him a lot, but Samari Matthews, I think Samari Matthews has a real shot. He's a really good-looking player.
Okay.
He's the cornerback out of North Carolina who's going to visit Texas. I think Diabell has a chance, Chad. I mean, Dia's number 53. I mean, he looked really good. He's coming off injury, but he did look – this is kind of first time to get a glimpse of him in action since last fall. He looked good at that 7-on-7 tournament. So I think Diabell has a shot to get in that kind of discussion. So – that's rarefied air. There's only like 32 of them. At the end of the recruiting cycle, they'll hand out usually 32. They kind of they start with like 5 or 6, and they gradually add on more. But yeah, I think several of those guys have a chance to get in that conversation for sure.
Yeah, be interesting to keep an eye on. All right, Jason, we good?
Yeah, I think we're good. I mean, we'll have more. Like you said, recruiting never stops. We have kind of revamped our coverage on Orange Bloods. We're excited about it. I hope that the readers, I think, are excited about it. Today I posted the rumor mill. Yesterday was the 3-2-1. Monday was a recap of all the weekend visits. Tomorrow we've got Truth and Lies, where we just throw out whatever rumors we've heard, and we'll rate it on a BS detector. Like, okay, hey, we heard whatever, Joe Blow's transferring to Alaska and he's not going to play football anymore. He's going to go be a fisherman. Like, okay, we're going to put every rumor we hear in there. We're going to give that a BS rated on the BS meter. But tomorrow will be our Truth and Lies column. Fun time to be on Orange Bloods. A lot of Orange Bloods, a lot of recruiting stuff. We're kind of changing our coverage, spicing it up a little bit. So go check it out, everybody.
There you go. There's your QR code. If you want to hit orangebloods.com, you've been thinking about getting signed up, you can go ahead and get signed up right now. Before we wrap up, let's tell you once again about that great sponsor, Longhorn Wealth Management Group. You're probably excited as a Longhorn fan about all these recruiting discussions we're having. And John and the team over there at Longhorn Wealth Management Group, they're excited as well. John has served for 15 years as a Dallas Texas Exes board member. If you're in the Dallas area, John's up there with you. And he's now helping lead the build out of the Collin County Texas Exes chapter. Again, John's pumped about all these official visits that Sark's got lined up for June with all those big 4- and 5-star recruits coming in that hopefully for Texas fans will be a part of that 26 class. I know John's hoping that. And with that kind of talent coming to campus, looks like another great class could be in the works. So to pay tribute to that, to celebrate that, John wants to help all Orange Bloods Live fans make their own financial plans truly work out by offering a free 90-minute private consultation. He'll share how working with a certified financial planner like John can help you identify and implement the strategies and solutions to ensure that you achieve your wealth management goals and objectives, including your retirement and legacy planning visions. So you can call John and the team at 972-707-4900 or go to longhornwealth.net. Schedule the free 90-minute private consultation today. And again, we appreciate Longhorn Wealth Management Group for being a great partner. We also appreciate all you guys for jumping in the chat today. And check out the shows throughout the day here on Orange Bloods Live. We got House Divided coming up at noon, Football with Friends at 6. A note, no outsiders tonight as we talk on a Wednesday. Since the Texas basketball team will be in that play-in game, we decided the outsiders will duck out of the way. The fellas want to watch the game, so they're going to be checking it out tonight. We'll get the outsiders back to you next week. And remember, TCH Social Austin, come on out and join us for House Divided, but also just watch party. Gonna hang out.
I plan on coming out there. I don't know when, Chad, but probably around lunchtime. So I'll see you guys out there. And anyone who wants to come out and talk recruiting and talk behind the scenes nitty gritty stuff, come on out there, man. Hey, you know what? I can actually go to this one and have a beer or two and just kind of chill because I'm going to try to get my war room done early. So I'm excited. So come out to TCH, man. All you the loyal viewers, have a beer with me and let's talk recruiting and watch some hoops tomorrow.
There you go. Whether the games are, total blowouts or they're really close, if you have bad beat bacon, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. And I'll do some prize picks to at least keep me interested too. So yeah.
There you go. Come on out and see us. And remember to like, subscribe, get those notifications. We appreciate it. If you didn't like it on the way in, go ahead and like the show on the way out. It does help us out. Until next Wednesday at 10 a.m., this is the Recruiting Hour. Again, check out orangebloods.com for the very latest on all the recruiting information and come back and see us next Wednesday. Jason will have even more stuff for you. It's Orange Bloods Live.